Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm a 40-year-old transgender woman from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Before I get started with anything else, I would like to start this video with a land acknowledgement. And with that, I do acknowledge that I live, work, and am recording this video on Treaty 1 territory, which are ancestral lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. I acknowledge that the water, as well, gets sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation. I respect the treaties that were made on these territories, I acknowledge the harms and the mistakes of the past, and I dedicate myself to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I'd also like to do a very quick visual description. Right now I am wearing a gray heather-esque sweater, and underneath is a pink-purple sort of and blue horizontally striped t-shirt. I have long blonde hair that's a little past shoulder length. It's currently straightened right now. It is naturally wavy and with some naturally brown roots coming in underneath. I've got a purple-esque color palette for my makeup, and I have my 3 piercings as always underneath my right eye on top of my cheekbone that go in a small, medium, large outward fashion that point towards a cluster earring on the top of my right ear. You can't see my left ear, but I do have stud ear piercings as well on both of those, and a nose piercing. I'm in my living room / office, and behind me is some exercise equipment like a recumbent bike, an elliptical, and a treadmill. Beige walls, not much else to add for a visual description. Well, I suppose I can add I'm 6'1" individual, I'm white, and I guess for Trans Day of Visibility, I can also add that the nails that I am currently sporting are using a pink, white, and blue color palette. Even though I haven't participated with sports consistently for my entire life, I've always had a passion for sports in general. And I can say as a trans individual, one of the largest reasons behind that was a sense of belonging. I never pursued the concept of participating in sports more than I truly wanted to in my younger ages because, again, I never felt I had a space to feel like I was at home, I suppose is a good way to put it. I would be more than happy to participate with sports in things like intramurals and so on, but my personal relationship with individuals was never strong enough to feel like I had belonging on a team. As I grew older, I continued to play in sports more and more, and I found a passion to play sports like softball especially, which is one of my most favorite activities. It was still a very difficult experience to participate in those sports because during that time, I was not providing my best self to the team every time I showed up. I came out very abruptly on June 7th, 2020. That was my 39th birthday, and I've been advocating strongly for trans inclusion in sports ever since. I understand the impact that sports has in our lives, culture, community, society, conversation, motivation, reputation. Sports is a major factor in our day-to-day lives, one of the most important and most prevalent machines of creating change. And advocating for trans inclusion in sports has been a passion of mine because when sports acknowledges in full that trans athletes have as much of a belonging in sports as every other individual, that message resonates through the communities accordingly. There are many organizations already that have trans inclusion policies, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, it is not enough. There continues to be a public opinion about trans individuals. Any organization that promotes itself to support diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, those values are great, but opinion and negotiation are not part of inclusion. Come as you are. We will make space for you. And sports organizations have a responsibility to make that space. As a trans woman and as a Canadian, I understand my jurisdiction. Unfortunately, far too many people continue to get influenced by opinions, beliefs, motivations, and errors from far too many places and far too many voices that aren't very far from the seat that I'm sitting in right now. My peers, my elected officials, people who don't know me, people who will never know me, continue to get influenced by beliefs that trans individuals are a problem. Trans individuals continue to suffer abuse and violence at a rate that is not slowing down anytime soon. And there is a responsibility for organizations who have the platform, who have the privilege to stop that abuse, to use their platform, to use their privilege to stop that abuse. There is consistent messaging that's rooted in fear that represents itself as hate and gets supported by fascism. that allows not only a wave, but a consistent attack against trans individuals, not only in sports, but in life. I don't need to look very far or very hard to see efforts that are trying to eliminate trans individuals from their authenticity, their place of belonging, and their sense of self. And those acts get promoted by individuals supporting hate, bigotry, ignorance, fascism, and are being whispered into the ears of far too many ignorant individuals as safety. People are absorbing trans erasure as a mechanism for their safety. Sports is a catalyst that this message gets pushed through. Young trans individuals get deprived of their life for the fear of a theory that individuals embrace. Canadian sports organizations have a responsibility to step up and act now. No more listening and learning. No more waiting to get educated. Education does not help people who are not interested in learning. It is a responsibility of sports organizations in Canada to stand and explain with their rules, with their mandates, with their policies that trans individuals have a right to participate in sports in accordance with their gender identity. So long as there are not rules to make it clear that trans individuals have a safe space to play and trans individuals are not out to harm anyone, the court of public opinion will continue to fear trans individuals when trans individuals fear the people who are trying to erase them. I've mentioned fascism a few times. It's a strong word, and it's not a fun word, but it's a real word. An institute was founded in 1919, and it had a fantastic reputation for providing support, education, research, so on, for not only trans individuals, but many other vulnerable communities too, including women. The books, the information, the history of that institute was burned in 1933. By the Nazis. Look what is happening not terribly far from us again, with bills to prevent trans individuals from participating in sports, from suggestions that it is child abuse to provide care for trans children who just want to live as themselves, books being banned and burned from schools, and proclamations about don't say gay. History repeats itself. Which is why I call it fascism, which is why I call it trans erasure. As Canadians, we're all aware of harms caused by erasure. As Canadians, we're very aware of what happened with the residential schools, the uncovering of horrid events. And those events were caused, supported, and protected by individuals who believed it would be best to eliminate those who they deemed unfit, to amalgamate those individuals to their ideology, to erase their culture, to erase their beliefs, to erase their being. And as Canadians, we have a responsibility to continue to stand up against that. And as Canadians, we have a responsibility to recognize what is happening now. My call to action is to national sports organizations, to provincial sports organizations, to independent sport governing bodies, to schools, to colleges, to community centers, and to anybody who just wants to put a game of sports together. My call to action is to get loud, speak up, announce, and promote your gender inclusion policies, and to ensure your policies are inclusive with trans individuals, and to mandate that your policies are inclusive for trans individuals to participate in sports in accordance with their gender identity. You have a responsibility to create a safe space. The benefit of you creating a safe space is you are leaders for the community you are part of. Your action creates change. Your action creates safety. Your action creates equity. Your action creates belonging. It is not right for a sports organization anywhere to support, promote, or amplify any athlete to a higher level if that organization does not give an opportunity for all athletes eligible to participate as their best selves. Sports organizations have a responsibility to create the space and the systems for all athletes to participate as their best selves. Sports organizations have a responsibility to lead by example. Sports have a responsibility to establish community. Sports is where people gather, and so long as there continues to be a discussion of the validity of trans individuals, sports does not gather. Sports divides. NSOs, PSOs, and everybody else who I mentioned earlier, this is your time. Trans Day of Visibility has the intent of amplifying the successes of trans individuals across the world, to remind the world that we also do great things. Trans Day of Visibility in sports is marred with controversy because we're already here. We're already visible. And not enough people accept us, and far too many people have a voice that is privileged to reject us. So my call to action for Trans Day of Visibility to all Canadian sports organizations is to not only uplift the successes of existing trans athletes, but to show what you're doing to create a space so that more trans athletes can have those successes too.